Welcome to Patty's Aquatics. So in today's video, what I want to do is talk about a species that is known as the immortal worm. It's also known as a shrimp killer. It's feared by many hobbyists around the globe for what it can do to a shrimp population. And that is the Planaria worm. Now I'm speaking on this subject today because, well, I found populations of them within a few of my aquariums in my fish room. So the goal of this video is, one, to help you identify what a Planaria worm is, how it operates, maybe how you got it within your fish room, and most importantly, how to get rid of it. But I also want to talk a little bit about, are they really hunters or are they scavengers that are just misunderstood? So stick around and let's deep dive into it. So how do you identify a Planaria worm? Well, if you see a white worm streaking across the glass of your aquarium or on the substrate, your best bet is to pull out your phone, take a closer look, and zoom in. Does it have a triangular head? If it does, you more than likely got a Planaria worm. Now, how do they move? Well, it's very similar to snails. They create a mucus they basically glide on, up and down your glass, on your substrate, and your plants, so they do not swim. A few more interesting facts. Well, one, why are they called the immortal worm? Well, it's for two reasons. One, it's aging process. Now, it's not truly immortal. It can be killed, but they do live a very long time. And then two, it's regenerative skills. You can cut one of these worms in half and create two worms. I actually was reading about a study where I believe they cut one into 279 pieces and it created 279 new worms. Very creepy and sci-fi-ish, but kind of interesting in the same respect. Another interesting fact is its mouth is really on its belly. If you see a discoloration within the center of it, that's where its mouth is. A tube comes out and that's where it sucks its food into it. So typically when you see it wrap around a shrimp or something like that, it's eating it from there. Its belly is where its mouth is. So those are some very interesting, creepy facts about these Planaria worm. So now you know how to identify them. But how did you get them? So how do you get these things? Well, they're typically hitchhikers. They're going to come in on your plants or their eggs, because yes, they do lay eggs, and they can wind up infesting your aquariums that way. They can also come in through shrimp themselves. I've seen a video where one, they go actually inside of a live shrimp. It's eating it alive from the inside. A person bought one, put it in their aquarium. It wound up coming out and infesting the entire aquarium. So those are typical ways of how you would get them in your aquarium if you did see one. It's usually by hitchhiking. For me, I can say probably a 99.9% chance it came from my resurrection jars and my food web material that I added to my aquariums for my local waterways. So that being said, I wound up taking out all my food web material from all my aquariums. Now, why did I do that? I did that mostly because I want to take those food sources out of there. So I can see really, do I have Planaria worm in all my aquariums or just the 4 that I found so far? I want to take that away so I can see if they're streaking across the glass and not just sitting in the substrate. Now, another thing I want to touch on is, do I still recommend food web and the food web process? And yes, I absolutely do. I'm going to do it a little different this time. I'm not going to take it from local waterways anymore. I'm going to try something a little different after I've got this all situated and sorted out. I want to culture some organisms like copeds and Daphnia and stuff like that, and use dry leaf material soaked in water and try to culture these organisms without taking these things straight from the wild, with the risk of having to introduce these things in my aquarium again. But that being said, one of my tanks I believe was ground zero, and I'll show you that now. So this is what I believe was the ground zero, I want to call it, tank that might have started the infestation, and it's the first tank that I've seen that actually had them. Now, this was my Matano rice fish tank. As you can see, that's not what's in here now, and I'll explain that in a second. But it was probably about a week or so ago I started seeing them gliding all over the glass. So what I started doing was water changes and sucking them up through the hose and trying to get them out of there. And this was the only tank that I had seen them in. So my thought process was, well, one, because I have these rare Matano rice fish in here that are egg scatterers, These things are probably eating the eggs because I have never seen a baby in this tank in the entire time I had it. My thought was, well, let's put some live bearers in here and then move those Matanos to a different tank so that way it's really not going to affect anything. Well, after I did that, that's when I noticed that they were in multiple aquariums. So after I moved the swordtails in here, I put my Matano rice fish in this 20 long that my double sword Taiwanese orange and green guppies were in, and then I moved them where the swordtails were. I found planaria worms galore in this white cloud minnow breeding setup, which would explain why I have not seen babies in here in well over a few weeks. And then I also found them in this one as well. Another reason why I'm not finding babies at all in these aquariums. Well, the more troubling fact is, if I could stand up, I also found them in my rainbow shiner tank. That's when I noticed planaria worm crawling on the glass of this aquarium. And then it got me thinking, this is the tank that houses my blue dream shrimp. I haven't seen a lot of them lately. This population was booming in here just a few weeks ago. I had baby shrimplets everywhere. Now I see maybe 10 of them in here. So it got me thinking, are they eating them? Now, yes, it houses my rainbow shiner, so there is a potential that they are picking a few off, but the population exploded with them in here. So if they are eating them, how do they eat shrimp? Basically, these planaria worm, when they crawl on the glass, on your substrate, or whatever they crawl on, that mucus layer that I said how they move with, there's also a toxin within it. And in that toxin is the same as like a puffer fish. What it does is it paralyzes an animal. Now, normal adult shrimp, it ain't going to do too much for when it crawls over that toxin. It's mostly going to be the baby shrimplets or maybe shrimp that just molted that aren't going to have that protective layer anymore. And then if it's on there long enough and gets affected by that toxin, they fall to the substrate. And from there, the planaria worm will just find that animal that's just laying there, not dead, and crawl on it and start eating it alive. They can crawl within it and eat it from the inside. However, that's how they eat them. So are they doing it on purpose, leaving these toxins in order for these shrimp and snails to get affected, to fall to the surface to be eaten? I don't know if it's really a hunting aspect of theirs or if it's just a cause of nature of this is what they have and then they find this at the substrate. I don't know that answer, but that's how it works. And then other ways are I've seen where basically you'll have a buried shrimp sitting maybe at the surface of the water, just eating, and then planaria wind up getting on it, paralyzing it, and then they'll eat all the eggs off the shrimp and then wind up eating the shrimp itself because it's paralyzed and can't move and can't do anything about it. So these things are definitely hunters within the aquarium though. I reached that subject before in the opening about, are these really scavengers or are they hunters? Well, in my opinion, in the wild, they are truly scavengers. There's a vast amount of area for them to cover and feed off and a plethora of food always for them to eat off of. They don't really need to really seek out food to get. Well, in our home aquariums, there is only limited food sources. And those food sources are shrimp, fish eggs, and such like that. So if they don't have a food source, they're going to seek out food to eat like any organism would. So that's why they target your shrimplets and shrimp that just molted, because they can get at them. Fish eggs that they find at the bottom of the aquarium, that's their food sources. So they are going to eat them. So I can't entirely blame them, but they are still hunters within our aquariums. They hunt your shrimp and your fish. Well, another thing is, how did they get in a few of my aquariums that don't have food web material? And I think that is my fault. I believe I introduced them myself. I use, which I know is a no-no, the same net to scoop duckweed out of all my aquariums. And I very well could have possibly introduced them to those because I never put, like I said, food web material within these white cloud minnow aquarium tanks. So I had to have introduced them that way, or it was through plants that I introduced into them when I added. So either way, they were hitchhiked on within those aquariums. But again, how do you get rid of them? You know, that is going to be the biggest thing. How do you get rid of these things? Now, I can tell you this. One, you don't want to squish them. If you see them on the glass, I repeat, do not squish them, because like I said, they can regenerate themselves. You squishing them will turn into dozens more within your aquarium. So that's definitely a no-no. So I want to get rid of these things, and let me explain why. I sell plants. I sell plants at local swap meets occasionally. I don't want that reputation of being able to sell plants that are going to have planaria or planaria worms on them. That's not okay with me. Two, I keep shrimp in a lot of my aquariums. I don't want those populations to be decimated. And also, I keep egg scattering fish in a few aquariums, like I showed with those Matano rice fish, my rainbow shiners, my white clouds. I can't breed properly if these things are going to be eating my eggs. So I want to kill them. And I know I'm probably going to catch some flack for the way I plan on doing it from the natural tank community, but really, I don't give a damn. I'm going to do what I need to do in order to wipe these things off the face of my fish room so that I can go back to being able to grow plants without worrying about infestation, grow my shrimp, and breed my fish. All right, so I just want to interject real quick because I really feel like I need to explain a little bit more. I didn't take this decision lightly. I really struggled with it back and forth on really what to do with it. I love the natural fish keeping aspect. I love not being able to put type of chemicals in your aquariums. I love nature just really taking over. But sometimes with these aquariums, I feel like you have to kind of intervene. And for me in this situation, I felt like it was needed. I want to breed my fish if these things are going to eat my eggs. I sell plants. I don't want to sell plants that are going to have planaria or planaria eggs on them. And I don't want my shrimp to be decimated in population. So I feel like I needed to take this step. So again, I don't take this decision lightly of what I did, but it's something I feel like I needed to do. And I just really wanted to kind of let you guys know that a little bit more because I feel like I really didn't explain that as well as I should have. So how do you get rid of them? Well, there are a few ways. One, this is really a managing way, and that is with traps. They sell these traps on Amazon that look like little glass tubes, and they got little holes at the bottom of them. You put some bloodworm in there or something like that, and then you put it at the bottom of the substrate. The planaria worm will crawl in, and then you can take them out and dispose of them. Now, I don't think you can fully eliminate planaria worms from your aquarium by just trapping. Now, if you have a tank that is just fish, you don't sell plants, you can manage them and I think you'd be fine. But if you're keeping shrimp, egg scattering fish that you're trying to breed in the ways that I'm doing it, it's just not going to work. That's not a possibility for me. I don't want to manage them. I want them gone. So that leads you to the extermination part of them. How do you get rid of them? Well, there are two different products that I have seen in my research I've done. One is no planaria, which I'll put a little picture up on one of these sides. How that works is a natural root that basically it kills the planaria over about a 72-hour process. And it also will kill your snails. So, but it is supposed to be plant, shrimp, and fish safe. So that is one way. But the way that I'm going to do it is I'm getting Panicure C. It is basically a canine dewormer, and it should kill these planaria within 24 hours. How it works, it's a powdered form, which that'll be another video when I actually get it. I did order it just the other day. When I get those, I will show you the process of actually how I plan on doing it in order to do it. I will document the entire process just to show everyone, well, did everything survive? Did my snails actually die? And that force. So Panicure C is what I plan on using to exterminate these things. It's like I said, a canine dewormer, another thing where you think outside the box and use something that's not naturally meant for the aquarium. Now, I have done a lot of research on this and I've looked on forums and people have been using this Panicure C for well over a decade to kill planaria worms. And again, it is fish, plant, and shrimp safe. So make sure you keep an eye out for that video and hit that notification bell because that will probably be one of my next videos once I get it and document this process. So that is the planaria worm. So yes, they truly are scavengers, more in the wild, but within our home aquariums, I really consider them to be hunters. They're going to eat your shrimp. They're going to eat your fish eggs. that's their food source. They're looking to survive and eat like any organism would. So you can't entirely blame them, but the same respect, I don't want them in my aquariums. Now, like again, there is nothing wrong with the food web. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just like, again, like I said, more due diligence in observing these jars before you introduce them into your aquariums. And like I said, there are going to be people that don't mind them. If you have tanks with mostly fish in a heavy food web material, they are going to have plenty of food at the bottom of your aquarium to potentially not really have to pick off your shrimp and stuff, but it's still not a risk I want to take myself. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a little something about these things. And like I said, keep an eye out. At next video of me treating these tanks will be coming. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it, and hit that notification bell as well. And then always remember to think outside the box, take a step back in the nature. Hope to see you next time here at Patty's Aquatics.